Welcome into another edition of Berg is the Word. Let's talk about the Chicago Bears 36-25 loss to the New Orleans Saints in a game where the final score really was not indicative of what was complete domination by the New Orleans Saints today and just how bad the Chicago Bears offense is. It was good to see the Bears put up a fight at the end, but at what point are you just padding your stats in a game where the offense did not show up to play? If not for Cordarrelle Patterson's kickoff return touchdown, this game would have been even worse. Keep in mind that New Orleans missed multiple field goals as well. This game, even though it was only an 11-point game, at home, the Saints without Drew Brees, without Alvin Kamara, and still blowing out Chicago. What happens when a team like New Orleans gets those players back just goes to show you how deep this Saints team is. Now 5-0 under Teddy Bridgewater. They'll take on Arizona next week. We'll see if Brees ends up playing against Arizona, then they'll have the bye week, or if Brees comes back after the bye week. But if you're a Bears fan, at what point you have to ask yourself, would Chase Daniel go in to replace Mitchell Trubisky? But that's not the only team's problem right now. When you rush the ball only 7 times for 17 yards, a lot of that is play calling. When you start to face a deficit, though, you need to keep time on the clock. They weren't able to do that. I know Montgomery had the fumble in today's game too, but the Bears, even despite their passing troubles, Trubisky missing on several throws. And again, if you look at the final numbers, maybe not as bad as you might think because of the garbage time touchdowns. But the Bears offense was absolutely abysmal today, regardless of what the final stats show. When the Saints aren't playing press coverage, they're playing more of a prevent style defense because the Bears are facing a clock, the clock running out. This game could really be broken down to the Bears' offensive struggles, New Orleans' ability to move the football. Murray had more than 100 yards on the ground. And then if you look at time of possession, the Saints had the ball for 37 minutes and 26 seconds. The Bears, 22 minutes and 34 seconds. So why does that matter? Because time of possession doesn't always matter, but for the Bears style, it does. And here's why. The defense, which has been pretty good this season, if the defense can't hold a team to less than 20 points, the Bears struggle. Last week marked the first time that the Bears allowed more than 20 points in their previous 8 games. It was the longest active streak in the NFL. If you're an NFL team, with how poorly the Bears are playing offense right now, if you can score more than 20 points against the Bears, there's a good chance that you're going to win the football game. It's a good chance you're going to win the football game if you can put up more than 20 on this Bears defense. And the offense, 17 rushing yards on only 17 attempts. You have to have balance with running the football. And maybe Trubisky is completely back from his shoulder injury. No quarterback should be throwing the ball 54 times in the game, even if you have Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady. And again, I understand the Bears were trying to, surmount a comeback. But you've got to establish the run. Passing the ball 54 times and only running it 7 times, you become predictable. And really, other than Allen Robinson, what playmakers do you have on this offense right now? Again, I like to see some of the fight at the end with Tariq Cohen trying to get the ball to some of the guys, but where's that earlier in the game? And again, if the Saints are playing more of a prevent style defense, you're going to get a lot of the stuff underneath that, is an easy pitch and catch, but you're running out of time and it's too little too late. And that's what happened today. And again, think about how much worse this game would have been if you're Chicago, if not for Cordarrelle Patterson's kick return touchdown. Yeah, the Bears put up 25 points, take away 7 of those because of the kick return touchdown. And it just shows you how much this offense has struggled to move the football. Saints had 424 total yards, the Bears 252. 252 total yards for the Bears today, 273 yards passing from New Orleans, 235 for Chicago. And then the rushing numbers, 151 for the Saints. Murray had 119 yards rushing on 27 carries and 2 touchdowns. The Bears only ran the ball 7 times and had 17 yards. I might look this up after the fact if anyone knows this. Have the Bears ever rushed for fewer yards in a football game? With all the different running backs the Bears have had through the years, with, Montgomery's the rookie now, but they had Jordan Howard before, going back to guys like Thomas Jones, Anthony Thomas. You want to go all the way back to, say, a Walter Payton or a Neil Anderson. The Bears only had 17 yards rushing today, and Trubisky was 34 of 54, 251 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. Why is Mitchell Trubisky in the first game back from a shoulder injury dropping back to pass that often? I'll say this, the Bears offensive line, Trubisky was only sacked twice, whereas Bridgewater for the Saints was sacked only once. I think he's been absolutely terrific, Bridgewater. Bears also turned the ball over twice. New Orleans did not turn the ball over in today's game. I mean, unless you want to count the onside kick at the very end of the game that Michael Thomas muffed, and then Cordero Patterson recovered that as well. But, man, if not for Patterson's kick return touchdown, where would the Bears be right now? And that's the question that you have to ask yourself at the conclusion of this game. And if you're the Saints, do you want to start Brees next week against Arizona, or do you want to give him one more week with the bye? Cowboys Nation says, if you're Bears, do you consider starting Chase Daniel next week? I think even just to switch up the mojo, I'll say this. I don't think it's all on Trubisky. The Bears' offensive problems are much bigger than just the quarterback. And again, I go back to the struggles running the football this season. 7 rushes today for 17 yards rushing. But changing up the quarterback, what that might do is change up the mojo of the team. And at least Daniel had a little bit of success in his 2 weeks filling in for Trubisky. I think there's a limitation to how, Daniel is as a quarterback. There's a reason why he's been a little bit of a journeyman throughout his career and has served as a backup for the vast majority of his career. But there's certain throws Trubisky just misses on that a good NFL quarterback consistently makes. And I don't know if it's all on Trubisky, because really, other than Allen Robinson, the Bears offense just lacks playmakers. Tariq Cohen, defenses have been keying on him. They haven't been able to establish the ground game. Where are some of the receivers? Gabriel, or I believe Anthony Miller. Where's Trey Burton or Shaheen as the tight ends? You've got a good offense. A good quarterback is almost like a point guard in basketball, able to distribute the football to different playmakers on the offense and getting the ball quickly out of his hand. And Trubisky, again, it's not all on him. The reason why he throws 54 passes in today's game is because the Bears were facing a deficit for the vast majority of the game. When this game went into halftime, it was 12-10. I'm watching this game, and I'm wondering to myself, how is this only a 2-point game, considering how poorly the Bears offense has played? And they're going to spoil what's been one of the best defenses in the NFL so far this season. But again, if you can get more than 20 on Chicago, there's a good chance that you're going to win the football game. And that's what we've seen so far this season with this Bears team. Again, I went into halftime, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, how is this only a 2-point game considering how poorly this offense has played? And if not for those last few drives, what would the numbers look like in today's game when it's garbage time? And yeah, it's good to see that your players have a fight. At the same time, you really want to avoid any kind of injuries or suspensions, because it was getting chippy out there too. Frustration boils over, which you can certainly understand if you're the Chicago team. But New Orleans, who would have thought that they'd be 5-0 with Teddy Bridgewater as its starter? The Bears will take on the Los Angeles Chargers next week. Again, the Saints have the Arizona Cardinals before their bye week. So we'll see what happens with both of these teams. Chicago goes to 3-3. They are 1-2 at home this season. Meanwhile, the Saints 6-1, 3-1 on the road. And the Saints have just looked absolutely incredible, especially considering winning their 5th consecutive game. And Arizona, we'll see what happens with them. Young quarterback and Kyler Murray trying to kind of figure out their identity. You'd certainly imagine that New Orleans would be favored in that game. Meanwhile, Bears Chargers coming off a tough loss. Pulling it up here to Tennessee today. Chargers have lost 3 consecutive games, and it will be at Soldier Field as well. So I think that gives Chicago an advantage. Chargers are 2-5 this season, so I'd imagine that the Bears would be favored in this game. But considering that Minnesota won today, Green Bay won today, this NFC North is going to be a dogfight. And it's almost looking like if the division's going to get away, okay, where does the wild card stand in the NFC? Just because the NFC North is going to be very, very competitive for Chicago, and they haven't looked very good. And they're on the verge of spoiling what has been a terrific defense, really to this point, up until these last 2 games. But again, that's what happens. I don't care how great your defense is. If the defense consistently gets stuck on the field, I don't care how good of players and how good of athletes that you have. After a certain point, they're going to tire down. And New Orleans was able to do that today. And New Orleans was able to establish the ground game with Latavius Murray. More than 100 yards on the ground for him, 2 touchdowns as well. New Orleans was able to move the football methodically, both through the air and on the ground. And again, there was balance with New Orleans, something that the Bears have not had this season, even despite Chicago's quarterback troubles. Again, my name is Mark Bergin. If you enjoyed this, please feel free to share it with your friends. Depending on what platform you're on, also feel free to subscribe. I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. Hope all of you have a terrific rest of your Sundays with wherever you're watching. Take care, so long, and I'll see you next time.